Have you ever read a book or watched a TV series or a movie and when it was over, found yourself missing the characters? Yeah. Wishing that it had gone on and on and on, that you could go back and experience that for the first time again. Have you ever had a favorite book or movie or TV series get a sequel it shouldn't have? Yeah, you go back and everything is wrong now. We are stretching this out into seasons that don't need to be happening, into books that don't need to be happening, or we have, I don't know, gone back to a classic book and turned it into 3 movies when it didn't need to be that many movies. So one of our themes this month is chrysalis, which is a word we picked in place of the word transformation. We picked it in place of the word transformation because we want to talk about that period where you're kind of in the goo, right? For a little bit further reference, butterflies, right, began as caterpillars and they caterpillar their way around eating things. And then one day, we're going to give this caterpillar a little bit more conscious thought than a caterpillar probably has. Let's be in the fictional here for a second. One day, that caterpillar is like, whoa, my body needs me to build a cocoon. And they build a cocoon and then they liquefy themselves. This would be horrifying if you had a consciousness. Can you imagine? One day you wake up and you're like, oh, I gotta put myself in a bundle of blankets and oh, now I am a goo. And it's not like just a little bit of the butterfly or the caterpillar that dissolves on the way to the butterfly. The whole thing dissolves. And it is just a little sack of goo for a while. And I imagine that if you had consciousness while that was happening, it would just be terrifying. It might be a little bit like being a teenager, but like worse. Because there's nobody around to be like, it is okay. People survive this all the time. But the goo is a really generative, creative space for the butterfly because it goes from being whatever little caterpillar it was into a brand new creature. It comes out of the cocoon and it has a new body and it kind of shakes itself a little bit, gets dry, and discovers that it has wings. And its wings are, it probably doesn't know this, but pretty. And even if it's a moth, actually, and the wings are a little less pretty, it has wings now, and it can fly. It couldn't do that before. The world is actually so much bigger for the caterpillar once it becomes a butterfly, because it can flap its wings and move off into the distance. Some butterflies travel further than a lot of people ever travel in their life, and with much less carbon emissions. Monarch butterflies make a flight from way up in the Americas to way down south in the Americas. If they had to take a plane every time they wanted to do that, we'd be in worse shape than we already are. So I want to think about the goo. And I want to think about the goo in part because we are actually all fundamentally in the goo right now. And we're going to get back to my thoughts on the goo in a couple of weeks. That's actually the title of the platform on the 17th, In the Goo. So if you're interested in goo, return, but maybe don't tell us all about it. So today I'm going to try to thread what is actually a very complicated line, because I'm going to ask you to think about letting go of the past while knowing that that is literally impossible, and actually in many cases not that good of an idea. So let's get into this little wiggly line. N.K. Jemisin writes a story called The Cuisine de Memoire, which is a sci-fi story about a restaurant. A restaurant where you can go and you can eat a meal from any point in history. Or any point in your personal history, as long as you can name the exact date that you ate that meal on. People go there, spend lots and lots of money to be able to experience things that used to happen. And the main character of this particular story goes back to a dinner he had with a woman who he failed to have a relationship with. He's stuck. He realizes he's stuck. His dining companion tells him that she is worried that he will start to come back to this restaurant and eat that meal over and over again, because nostalgia and our memory of things is often pretty addictive, right? The past is easy because you were already there, right? It is easy as an adult to be like, being a teenager is hard but fine because you already survived it. It is harder from the inside. The past is easy because whatever conflicts you have are resolved, or at least back there. The past is easy because you survived it already, and it is addictive, tantalizing, easy to get stuck on because you knew how to do it. I rapidly approach a birthday. I think every time I'm about to approach a birthday that I have just figured out how to be the age that I am. By about March, I'm like, all right, I know how to be 35. Damn it, I gotta be 36. This is worse sometimes than others, right? 20 to 21 is a bigger one than 35 to 36, right? 39 to 40, which Caitlin will do this year, bigger. 59 to 60, 69 to 70, those are bigger feeling jumps because you already figured out how to be a person in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s if you're lucky. And now you have to do something new. Awful, the worst. Except for, well, the alternative, which is not getting to do that. And you don't turn 40 or 30 or 21 or anything without those other ages still being there. You have to do the new thing, right? When you turn 21, you gotta go to the DMV, not the region, the place. And you gotta get your ID switched from vertical to horizontal so that the world knows that you have made an important change. At some point in most of America, when you're around 16, or eventually, you have to get a driver's license. Probably. People who live in big cities, New York in particular, get to avoid that. The rest of us, stuck driving at least sometimes. But your, if you have been 21 already, self, is still inside you somewhere. Perhaps activated by the presence of Fireball whiskey. Your 16-year-old self, if you have one already, is somewhere in there, excited about the future, looking forward to the kind of freedom that comes with blossoming adulthood. Your 12-year-old self who is not ready for what is about to happen in their life is in there. And your 5-year-old self and your 3-year-old self who are full of explorative energy are in there too. You are not yourself from before, but you are not without yourself from before. Complicated, layered. I trust you with it. So here's the thing. Sometimes we hold on to things from our past that are, in fact, poison. Sometimes something happened. There was a conflict in a community that we love. There was an event in our own lives. There was a relationship that ended poorly, or a job we didn't get, a school we didn't get into, a path we didn't take, or one we did that went way worse than we expected. And we can get stuck on that feeling. We can get stuck to the tune that your brain can actually become wired to seek out the bad feeling. This is really common in people who experienced abuse, especially if you experienced abuse in childhood. But it happens to all kinds of people in all kinds of situations. You feel something, usually something bad, and you get stuck there. You can't stop thinking about it. You loop around and around and around on it. Or you find yourself creating that situation over and over and over again in your life. You can't figure out how to be close with people, so you throw weird fits the second somebody is too close, because closeness is scary. Because you think you have some control over what's going to happen as long as you cause the problem. Usually you do not think that with your conscious brain. Usually that is your feelings brain doing stuff on its own, but if you're paying attention, you might notice the places where you might have a habit of causing problems on purpose because you haven't been able to get out of a situation that hurt. Sometimes we do this because we don't grieve. This is not a society that is very good at grieving. And if the thing that you are grieving is not literally the death of an immediate family member, this society has no structures for helping or encouraging you to grieve at all. But there are losses that are not death at all, that are desperately in need of grieving. There are things that will happen throughout the course of your life that you will need to grieve. And you will probably not have been given time, space, resource, or support to do that. Sometimes in communities, things happen. I'm going to be real vague here. Fill in the details on your own. Sometimes in communities, things happen, and there is a break. There is a fracture. Something happens and the community splits over something. People leave and don't come back. And because of a lot of things, there's not really a grief period. Because the pressure of week to week to week in a community where you do things gets so big that it can be hard to say, hey, let's stop and process that. Sometimes everybody involved is too to possibly stop that. The thing is that if you don't grieve it, it gets stuck in you. The thing is, if there is never time and space to say, wow, that hurt, it is going to stick inside at least enough people for it to continue to be a problem long into the future. Take a second, take a few big deep breaths if that feels good, and do a little searching through your mind. Are you stuck on anything? Is there something in there that you didn't get time to grieve? I don't need you to tell me about it right now, or to tell anybody else about it right now. For the moment, whatever you just thought of is all yours. Spend some time with it. Take a look. I encourage you to take some time, maybe to journal about whatever you thought about, or write it down on a piece of paper and burn the piece of paper, depending on where you are in your grieving process. Because here's the thing. When we're stuck on something, when we haven't grieved it or we've made it part of our nervous system's patterns, it gets really hard to move on to the next chapter in the book, right? Especially when we're doing it as a group. If something happened in chapter 4, and we are now in chapter 8, and you are still in chapter 4, and we'd like to go to chapter 9, and we'd like to go together, we are stuck, leaving the narrative wishy-washy at best. You gotta take the time to grieve the things, and friends, there is too much to grieve. Most days, actually, I feel like I cannot hold the level of grief that the world offers to me. That might be familiar to you if you read the news ever or exist. If you happen to be here from, I don't know, some future or past time, if you are a time traveler, maybe you do not have these problems. Although Doctor Who suggests to me that you would still have grief problems, even if you were outside of the timeline. That's the cutest thing. Let's just let that be the future speaking to us through the only way this future can speak to us, children. The child says, I love you. The future says, I love you. Will you come be in the future with me? I'm really very excited about the future of this community, about the places that we're going together, about the new faces that show up. Almost every Sunday there is someone I have never seen before here. And I've been around long enough that I've seen a lot of you. Though I did recently have a stress dream in which there was secretly a second WES congregation who nobody had told me about. And they were not happy. Barring that, I'm really excited because there is such creative possibility here. There are so many people bringing so many different perspectives. Not the full spectrum of perspectives that exist in the world, but that's okay. We've got people of a variety of ages, active members who are everything from actually the silent generation to Gen Z and very nearly Gen Alpha, right? We have a wide range of experiences, people who were hurt by religions that they left, and people who came up in ethical culture, and people who came up nothing in particular and found their way here anyway. The shared commitment is how we get to the future, but there are pieces of the past that we're gonna have to let go. There are ways in which maybe you have been hurt here. And I'm not saying that those things aren't true or that they weren't bad. I'm not saying you have to stop knowing about them, because you can't. Right? What happened to you, and the past is true regardless of if it's still here. And we need to learn from the things that happened in the past. Here, in the country, in the world, we have to pay attention to what was true, but we cannot live there. We cannot afford, and I mean that in literal and not literal ways, to live in the past. We have to decide to live together in the future, because there is no getting there without choosing it. And there is no getting there without letting go of the things that are forcing us to stay stuck in old patterns. I think the rest of this book, the next chapter that we are writing together, is going to be really cool. I think it's going to be vibrant and interesting. I think it's going to do some stuff that matters. I think we're going to keep making friends with other organizations and working together, building solidarity and mutuality. I think our goo time is for deciding that, a caterpillar and the butterfly we were before that, because this thing goes in circles and circles and circles. It is not just one caterpillar and one butterfly. It is a caterpillar that turns into a butterfly, that turns into a caterpillar, that turns into a butterfly, and on and on and on. But we've been a caterpillar for a minute. We can call pandemic time literally any organization some caterpillar years, right? You don't know what's going on. You might get eaten by a bird. Where is a leaf? Caterpillar time is over. Goo time is upon us, but those butterfly days, they're coming. I need you to choose to come into the butterfly days with us. I need you to choose, I'm going to switch metaphors here. I need you to choose to take all of the things that have been, the bad and the good, sort through them and turn them into compost. Okay? Let it digest, let it break down, let it become something that nourishes the garden that we're growing. We need history, we need to know that stuff. But if you don't, gosh, I'm forgetting the words. What's the word for when you mix the dirt up in the ground? Till, thank you. If you don't till the soil, you can't grow anything new. And if you keep trying to grow the exact same thing, then we'll have a dust bowl. So what if we didn't? What if we till the soil? What if we say, those things were good and bad and happened, but they're not what we're doing right now? What if we say that in our own lives and in community? And what if from there we learn how to say that in the broader world? If we say, you know what, these past, let me pick a number, 8 years have been incredibly difficult. I would put it further. I think the past 10 plus years have been incredibly difficult. It's been hard, and it's not going to not be hard, but what if we take everything we've learned, till it up, we compost it, we digest it, we plant something new so we can try again? Because the cool thing about being a garden or a perpetually refreshing butterfly, as I've decided we are, the cool thing about being maybe the kind of jellyfish that grows all the way to full jellyfishness and then back down again and up and down forever, is that you always get to try again. The cool thing about being a person, which you are, actually, is that you always get to try again. Every day is an opportunity to do something a little bit different than you did yesterday. Every Sunday, an opportunity to reset yourself for the week and aim at whatever life will bring you this week with something different in your mind and in your heart. Every month, an opportunity to say rabbit, rabbit, and get going. Every year, another chance to do something different. It's a new month, it's a new week, it's a new day. Let's take a trip into the future together. Let's let the past be the past, not something we never think about, not something unimportant, but something that isn't happening right now. Information rather than activation. I believe in you and I believe in the future. I believe in our collaboration amongst ourselves and in the broader community. I believe in the possibility of a community centered on love and care for one another and the world around us. I believe that we elicit the best from one another when we choose to live today and tomorrow, moving forward, instead of stuck on where we used to be. So this is an invitation. If you had something that came to mind when I asked you to think about something you're stuck on and you want to talk about it, it's an invitation to email me and set up some time to talk. If you have dreams about what this community could become, it's an invitation to talk to those of us in leadership and also volunteer yourself for leadership where it makes sense. If you're new, it's an invitation to get involved. We're going places. If you've been here for a long time, it's an invitation to bring your wisdom. If you've been here for a long time and you haven't been back in a while, it's an invitation to come back. It's an invitation to be together, to work and try and grow and change and turn the page together. Thank you.